Hey everybody, it's Luke Fabish from lukefabish.com here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how you can learn JavaScript in 2017, because these days there's way more to learning JavaScript than just learning the JavaScript syntax, because modern web development has thrown up like a whole new ecology of build tools and programming paradigms even, and I'm going to be looking at what those are today so that you can learn how to become a JavaScript developer in 2017. And what is this? Is it a road? Could that be a metaphor for your JavaScript learning journey? I think it could. But what are we going to cover right now? Well, we're going to look at the basics. So if you haven't really done any programming before, what are the things you need to know to start learning JavaScript? JavaScript books that can be very useful to you once you've got the basics down, and then we'll check out the tooling ecosystem, which is expansive and ever-changing. But first, if you haven't learned any programming languages previously, then you're going to want to get some fundamental concepts down. I mean, we can start learning the syntax, but really what we also need to know is, well, how do we make decisions in a programming language? How do we repeat things? How do we loop? And so on. Now, if you're in that position, this is your very first go at learning a programming language, head on over to lukefabish.com/JavaScript, where I have a little index of articles that can help you get on top of that stuff. But let's say that this isn't your first programming language, or you've got the basics of JavaScript down now anyway. What's really going to help you on your learning journey is a book. And this is about how many JavaScript programming books there are in the world. Or maybe there's a few more. But I'm going to recommend two for you today. The first is Headfirst JavaScript Programming, not to be confused with Headfirst JavaScript. There's two books. Look for Headfirst JavaScript Programming. It's the one with the blonde lady on the front. This is the particularly good one. If you've never used a Headfirst book before, you're in for a surprise. It's going to feel like being in grade school again. You're going to be doing acrostics and join the dot puzzles and things like that, but they're really, really good for getting on top of a subject fast. And while they do start with some pretty basic information, they do lead you into relatively interesting areas of the programming language. So it's a great one to get started with. Once you've got that down, then I recommend JavaScript: The Good Parts by Douglas Crockford. Now, this book is a JavaScript programming classic, and pretty much everything you read or hear about good programming practice in JavaScript originated from this book. So it's a great book to be familiar with, and particularly, it's called JavaScript: The Good Parts. This implies there are some bad parts to JavaScript, and there are, and this is a great place to learn how to steer clear of them. So that's the basics and some books that can help you on your learning journey. But what about JavaScript tooling? At first glance, it can look like this. A big jumble of things that might cut you. But really, we're going to look at this today, and we're going to break them down into three categories to help you get a handle on what it is you need to learn. And we'll start with package managers, then we'll look at JavaScript build tools, and then finally we'll look at some of the web frameworks that are super popular in the JavaScript world right now. So first, package managers. What's a package manager? Well, let's say that you've written some code, or you're writing some code, and you want to use a library called gorilla.js. Who knows what that is, but you want to use it. And the thing is, Gorilla.js has its own dependencies. Maybe it needs to use some libraries like Banana.js and Silverback.js and Misty.js. And then maybe Banana.js has its own dependencies. It needs to use a library called Platano, and then Plantain and Ladyfinger, and then so on. Now, you don't want to go and install all of these one by one manually. That would take forever, and it would be complicated and error-prone. Enter package managers. Package managers are tools where you can use them to say, hey, package manager, I want to install Gorilla.js. And the package manager heads off to Gorilla.js and sees that it has all these other dependencies, and those dependencies have dependencies, and so on, dependencies, all the way down. So it can take care of that for you. It just goes and installs everything that needs to be installed for you to be able to use Gorilla.js successfully. So that's great. So what have we got? Well, first of all, there's NPM. That stands for Node Package Manager. And this is the great granddaddy of package managers. It's been used for a very long time, and it's almost the default. Another great option is Bower, but I have a preference for NPM, which we'll see why that is shortly. Okay, so build tools. What are build tools? What do they do for us? Well, let's imagine you had some code, your code.js, and you wanted to lint it to make sure that you've coded it in an appropriate style and avoided any obvious errors. And then maybe you want to transpile it, turn it from one syntax into a different syntax, and you might want to test that and then bundle it up and then compress it. It would be extremely tiresome to type all these commands in from the command line every time you wanted to run your code. And this is the sort of thing that build tools take care of for us. After we configure them, they can go and run linters and transpilers and test your code and bundle it up and compress it, ready to be used in a browser. And what do we use for these most often? Grunt, Gulp. These are the two big ones. I don't know why build tools have to sound like regurgitation, but they seem to. And both of these are tools that will run other tools that perform these jobs, like linting and transpiling and bundling and compressing and what have you. Another option, and my preference, is NPM. Again, it can also run a build for you, and I like using it for that because one less tool and a bit less configuration makes me very happy. Finally, in 2017, regular modern JavaScript development will often use a web framework. And that's something where we take our lovely peachy colored code, run it through a framework of some kind, and boom, that'll produce a web page. And this is a way of magnifying or multiplying our effort. We can take our code, give it to a framework after we've written our code in a format that's appropriate for the framework, and that framework takes care of a lot of the nasty details that are involved in running and rendering web pages. And what are the big ones in 2017? Well, React is massive, and so is Angular. React really just takes care of the view, which is to say it takes care of how a web page is rendered, but that's all. Angular will take care of how the web page is presented or viewed, and it will also take care of communication between your web page and a backend server of some kind. So while React is a lot simpler and easier to learn, it does a lot less. Angular, well, it'll take you a while to learn, but does way more for you. And finally, bringing up the rear, we have Vue, which is like an even more simple version of React. And that pretty much rounds out what we need to know for JavaScript development in 2017. So I hope you found that useful and not too daunting. I'm going to be covering those topics and, well, way more over on lukefabish.com in the near future. So if you'd like to find out more, head over there, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye for now.